How do we equip our families with a biblical worldview? How do we prepare the next generation for life? How do I grow in my walk with the Lord and in my marriage? If you wrestle with these questions, you are in the right place to find answers. Welcome to the Entrusting the Faith podcast. Welcome to the Entrusting the Faith podcast. I'm your host, Eric Rutherford, and today I have Tim Shorey as my guest. Tim is an author, he's a speaker, he's lead pastor of Risen Hope Church in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. Just a wonderful father, husband, grandfather, and Christ follower. So a couple of quick items before we get to this interview, though. First, go to our website at entrustingthefaith.com, scroll down to the bottom, and sign up for a weekly email so you'll know who's coming up on the podcast for the week and who you may have missed the previous week. You'll also get a free resource when you do. While you're there, you can find all of our podcasts there on the website. Scroll through them, find other interviews to help you along the way. Second, this episode is brought to you by my book, Leading Well at Home: How Husbands and Fathers Can Biblically Lead Their Families. Have you ever thought, I want to be a godly husband or father, but I don't know where to start? Have you heard that you need to do something to equip your family, but did not know how to begin? Well, if so, Leading Well at Home will show you how you can love Jesus Christ, love and serve your wife and children, and take responsibility for discipling your family. You'll be encouraged and given action steps that you can apply so that you're moving forward. You can buy it online through our website at entrustingthefaith.com or at leadingwellathome.com or anywhere books are sold online. You can also get a free excerpt on our website. Okay, let's jump into today's interview. Tim, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Eric. Thanks for inviting me and having me in as a guest. It's a joy to be with you.
Oh, it is my pleasure. And one of the things really wanted to kind of jump off, kind of kick off the episode talking with you about is you have your newest book. You've written more than one book. This is the newest one, an ABC Prayer to Jesus. Sort of what motivated you to write it? What were you trying to answer? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's a book that has kind of grown out of, I think, a number of different aspects of my life. I'm a father of 6 grown children. I have 13 grandchildren. I love children, always have, always will. In fact, I think I love them more and more as the years go on. And one of the things that through the years I have enjoyed trying to do, and the Lord has given me some success in it and ability in it, is to take some of the deeper and richer truths of God's Word and think them through and think them out far enough and deeply enough that they can actually be communicated to children. That is no easy task, but it is something that I have found delight in and have wanted to do in different ways throughout the years of my ministry. And then about 10 or 11 years ago, I was kind of led into, just kind of flowed into a devotional experience of my own, a kind of, I call it alliterative adoration, in which I focused for 26 straight days on the person and work and names and titles of our Lord Jesus, and just found myself delighting in Him through that experience. I collected those, and once they were collected, I thought, I would love to do something like this for children, simplified, abbreviated, and something that would declare Jesus to young children, and not just preschool type, but really the whole elementary age child, I think, would benefit from, would find some joy in a book that focuses on Jesus, but does it in a way that is easily accessible for young hearts and young minds. And so the idea of an ABC prayer to Jesus, praise for hearts both young and old, developed out of that. And finally, just a few weeks ago, 10 years after the original idea finally came out, was released. And so it's just been a joy, and is now a joy, to offer this to families, to offer it to children, really to churches, to homeschoolers, to Vacation Bible School. There's really an application in many different ways, but it's for kids. And it's, I like to say that part of my motivation in the text of the book and in choosing my illustrator and the style of illustrations was to, I hope, to create, if I can put it this way, a sense of wow, moments where children and their parents, quite honestly, have a sense of wonder, like wonder about Jesus, wonder about who he is, what he is like. And the illustrations, I think, really contribute to that. So that's kind of the history. I wanted a simple text married to some really well done illustrations to produce a sense of worship and wonder for children and their parents.
I'll be the first to say, at least for our audience, if they're not familiar with it, if they haven't read it, it's a beautiful book. It really is. And it is theologically rich. I know you're gearing it. It was geared towards, for younger children, but man, it is theologically rich. I'll ask a question about sort of verse here in a minute because of the way you wrote it. But before we do that, why is it important to teach our children these truths, even when they're very young?
As I reflect on that, I have a surge of gratitude in my heart. My parents were missionaries. Dad was a pastor. Together, between those two areas of ministry, over 50 years of ministry. And neither my dad nor my mom had much sophisticated education, shall we say, or seminary training or anything of the sort. A simple Bible institute they went to. So people might have thought, well, it would be a simple ministry or whatever. The reality was that along the way, they saw the greatness of God, the glory of God. And I've often said that my parents' biggest gift to me was the two-sided gift of the gospel. Or let me put it the other way around. They gave me a big God, and then they gave me the gospel. Dad and Mom had just high views of God. They loved the glory of God, the sovereignty of God, the majesty of God, the holiness and love of God. And they loved to sing of this God. They loved to preach this God, proclaim this God. And I just grew up with this sense of the grandeur of God. And that was wedded to the gospel, so that the grace of God and the mercy of God and the freeness of grace in Christ. Those were just wonderful truths that filled my life or my upbringing. And life. How do I say this? Life hasn't been easy. We have endured many hardships along the way. It is that gift that has kept me rooted, kept me grounded. The grandeur of God, the greatness of God has seen me through all that we have endured. That was all learned in childhood. I received that from day one in my life. Our children need that. It has been my salvation, literally my salvation, at many different levels. Children need that. Children, they need more than moralism. They need more than ritual. They need more than just the, I don't know, the ordinariness of kind of religious faith. They need to see the glory of God. What does the psalmist say? To declare to the next generation the glorious deeds of God. That, I think, is what our children need. And I hope this book contributes something to that.
Well, I think it does. I think it does in a very real way. And one slight tangent question, because you talk about having a high view of God, of his glory, of his majesty, of his grandeur. If we as believers, if we as parents, for those who are listening who are grandparents, when we have that, and when we are able to demonstrate that to our families, how big of a difference does that make? As you are a pastor in a local church, you're going through life with everybody day in, day out. Is there a difference between those who do have that high view and those who don't?
That's a tremendous question, and it has layers to it. My mind goes in a couple different directions. I want to grab hold of the first line of thought before I forget it, and that is that I heard recently, and I won't get the exact numbers right, but hopefully the point will be clear. Studies that have been done, I think we've all heard, and I'm sure there's one reason why you're in the work with the focus that you have. We've all heard of teenagers and 20-somethings who, upon leaving the home, in heartbreaking numbers, are leaving the faith as well. And this is something that should grieve and concern us all, that this trend somehow could be reversed. I heard recently that while the numbers are very disheartening in terms of how many are leaving the faith, one qualifier for it, one caveat for it, is that when families are throughout the week, beyond Sunday, when families throughout the week, when children see their parents praying, when children can sense that God means something real to their parents, the numbers significantly alter in favor of those children, even if maybe they have wandering years, those children coming back to the faith. The difference, I would attribute this obviously to the sovereignty of God and the work of God in human hearts, but the means that God seems to use to draw grown-up children back into the faith is the memory of parents for whom their faith actually meant something. If they heard their parents praying in meaningful ways throughout the week, there's a significant more possibility that those children will return to the faith. That's a very simple expression, I think, in answer to your question. It matters to our children when they see that the truth of God matters to us, and that God is for us, not just a word, not just a Sunday, somehow or other God is slid into our Sunday schedule for an hour, but God is really the reality around which all of life revolves. That matters. It matters significantly. So it's important for our kids. Again, it's important just because God is who he is. and he is the center of life, whether we acknowledge it or not. I'm preaching this Sunday on Colossians 1:18. Jesus is the head of the church. He is the beginning. He is the firstborn from the dead, that he might have preeminence in everything. He is preeminent in everything, whether we acknowledge it or not. But the more we acknowledge it and live it, the stronger our own walk with Christ will be, and the greater the impact on our children, on the next generation.
No, and I appreciate those comments and that idea and those thoughts. Even as I'm listening, I'm reminded, of everything. God is in control of everything, and as a parent, my oldest right now is 15, so I've got a 15, a 14, and a 10, and they're not out of the home yet. Praying now for all of the unknowns that they're going to face, and you're having that fear and that anxiousness, but that reminder too of God loves them more than I do. He's in control, and so trying to have that memory, that remembering thing of all I can do is be responsible for my influence.
Well, and you're taking some of the thoughts we've shared and I think wonderfully applying it to our actual parenting. It's not just what we want to teach our kids or present to our kids, but it's what we need if we're going to survive the parenting experience. I've often said to my own heart, because every family at some point or other, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be hardships, there's going to be issues. I've often said to my own heart and said to others, don't panic, never panic, no matter what is going on. You don't need to panic. We have a God who is in control even of this. So I've had to preach it to my own heart in some of the parenting challenges and struggles that have gone on through the years. Our kids need this, but we need this to parent our kids.
Definitely, we do. I know I do. I can't claim anybody else, but I know I do.
Well, I've been around for long enough to know I do, and everybody else does too. I'm just going to say it. It's just the way it is.
Oh no, I appreciate that too, and I know everybody listening. I know that resonates with them too, because it's just doing that daily life and just trying to be faithful with what the Lord has given to us. Kind of with the book, one thing we had talked about even before the call was it's not only like I said, each letter a lot of theology in them, but they are it's verse. It's like 4 lines of verse per letter. And you're also sharing with me, you can set those to music, and I think it's just awesome. I'd love for you to share with the audience a little about the way it's set up.
Yeah, ABC prayer is really 26, actually 27. There's a closing verse, a 4-line verse, but then 26 4-line verses or stanzas corresponding to each letter of the alphabet. And each stanza either begins with that letter or emphasizes that letter in different ways, so that in reading it, it's clear which letter of the alphabet that particular verse is highlighting. And the content of it is taken from the titles, the imagery that we find in Scripture, whether it's Jesus as our shepherd or as our fortress or as living water, and just have drawn from dozens of different figures of speech and images that we find in Scripture to describe our Lord Jesus, and have just put them together in poetic form and with some alliteration mixed in there as well. And in the back of the book is actually a guide. There's a page where there are scripture references for each of the metaphors, similes, and so forth that are found in the book, so that, parents or teachers can actually almost turn it into a Bible study. They could turn to texts of scripture that correspond to the imagery that's in the poem itself. There is also something that developed late in the process, was an awareness that the stanzas that I had written, with a little bit of tweaking, with a little bit of adjustment, could all be fit to the tune of the doxology. And that just opened up a whole new dimension to the book. It's not only an evening prayer for children. It's not only a devotional reader for families that, with kids up through the elementary age at least. I know teenagers who have enjoyed it. It's not only a reader, it's not only a prayer, it actually is a songbook. You could sing your way through the book. Every stanza fits the tune of the doxology. I chose that in part because it is very familiar to many, many, many Christians, regardless of their particular context and fellowship. So as I introduced the book to my grandchildren, one set of grandchildren a few weeks ago, I read through the book to them, and they were enjoying it, and then looked at the pictures, they were enjoying that. And then I said, hey, let's sing the book. And I just started singing with the letter A, and my grandchildren automatically started singing. This was their first exposure to the book, and they were able immediately to sing several stanzas that we worked through in the book. So it becomes a little children's hymn book in a way that really allows the words not just to be read, not just to be read in context of some beautiful illustrations, but actually to be sung, and almost is a complete devotional work in that way. That's all Jesus focused and Jesus centered. So it became a real delight to add some of those dimensions to the book, and I'm praying that it will bless hearts, as the subtitle says, both young and old, because I think it can do that. So.
Oh, absolutely. I find with solid children's materials like this, we have used, when our kids were a little younger, there were like 2 or 3 story Bibles that we thought were solid, that really sort of told the whole story of Scripture, where you could really see, sort of Genesis to Revelation. And, sometimes as adults, we forget that Scripture, it is God's, not only his word, but his story to us of his people, of his salvation, his redemption. And so, those books, even though they were like story Bible geared towards children, I know as an adult, man, I am reminded constantly, I grow too. So it's like, as I'm looking at this book that you've written, it's sort of it's geared towards children, but the adults get it's like a bonus that's thrown in for them, because they get to grow with it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was, when I first kind of showed it to some adult friends of mine, including 1 or 2 authors, this is just what was said. When they were done, they found themselves weeping, that it had affected them that much. And again, I think what's affecting people is it's about Jesus. And I'm not, there's no exaggeration about it. Every line is about Jesus in one way or another. And it's a simple expression of prayer and praise that, I'm guessing, brother, I still love singing Jesus Loves Me, This I Know. It still moves me every time I sing it. And it hasn't gotten any deeper than it was the first time it is a simple, Jesus-focused expression of trust and faith and praise. There's something in that for all of us, I think. And I really do hope the book leads not just kids, but leads parents. And I think teenagers might just be sitting listening in as parents are reading it to their kids. And certainly as a grandparent, I hope grandparents are passing it on as well.
No, I agree. You mentioned something, not only parents, but also grandparents. And I've had conversations with a couple of other pastors. And one of the things that did kind of crop up is, that grandparents are in many cases heavily involved in the spiritual development of their grandchildren, either because they're spending more time because parents are working, or maybe parents aren't believers, or you pick your scenario. For grandparents listening, because I know I've got grandparents listening, what's one piece of encouragement or one thing you would encourage them to do, or action step that they can take just as grandparents in sort of helping guide their grandchildren on that walk with Christ?
Perhaps my initial response would be very similar to what I said earlier. Our grandchildren need to see that grandpa and grandma, or as I'm granddaddy and grandmommy, that we really love Jesus. That no matter how old we have become, Jesus is still life to us, and we are still resting in and trusting in and praising this wonderful God that we either grew up learning of, or somewhere along the line we learned of. Our grandchildren need to sense that this is a living thing, this is a dynamic thing in our life. For me personally, one reason why I wrote the book is I wanted to be able to hand something to my grandchildren as well, and because it matters that they see from our youth to our old age that there is this consistency of life and character and faith that is handed out. How can grandparents affect their grandchildren? Well, it's as much as is possible being a part of their life. And if my kids, I've got 6 kids, they live in 6 different states, ranging from New Jersey to California and from Pennsylvania down to South Carolina. And so it's hard maintaining an ongoing regular presence in their life. You have to take advantage of technology a bit, and you just have to create ways in which they're feeling your influence, even if you're not there. Whether it's cards, whether it's gifts, whether it's good books that really do show them the Jesus that you love, or the God that you worship, and that it all matters to you. Ultimately, it's God's work, but every example our children can see of authentic faith is going to be one more means in the hands of God to accomplish his saving purposes in our children and grandchildren's lives. So all that we can be and all that we can do, that our children and grandchildren can see, God, none of it returns void. God is always at work, and so let's stay faithful.
Oh, that is beautiful and encouraging too. This isn't your first book. You've written some others. What else have you written? I know we talked a little bit about it before, but yeah, just kind of for those listening who are like, man, now I'd love to read some other things as well.
Well, thanks for asking that. I have now, this is my fourth book. And just to give a kind of quick rundown, the first one was called Worship Worthy, Alliterative Adoration. And it was 26 devotionals in which I just used the titles, the names, the character of Christ, and just alliteratively arranged these in a way that just it just really, it's kind of an adult version of an ABC prayer to Jesus, kind of a book of, it's not really poetry. In some ways it is, I guess, kind of poetically arranged, but it really is a collection of the titles, the names, the characteristics of Jesus in a way that certainly affected me as I was creating it, and was a delight devotionally in my own life. The second book is called 30/30 Hindsight, 30 Reflections on a 30-Year Headache. I have that book was written a couple of years ago. It's now 32 years of constant headache pain, 24/7 for the last 32 years. I had viral meningitis that did some damage to my nerve lining in my head and just created constant, significant pain for me. Even as I'm talking right now, I'm battling through a headache. But after 30 years, I just felt, I want to bear testimony to the sustaining grace of God. Healing would have been nice. Healing grace would have been nice. But sustaining grace is pretty amazing, too. And I am profoundly grateful for the grace of God in my life over this last 32 years of pain. And I just wanted to write about that, brief meditations that I hope give praise to God as it is due, but also maybe encourage people who are facing chronic affliction or pain, or maybe they have a loved one who is. That book may provide some encouragement for them. And then my third book is called Respect the Image, Reflecting Human Worth in How We Listen and Talk. It is a book, first of all, about what it means to be human, made in the image of God. And then how should that affect how we relate to each other and how we listen to each other, how we talk with each other. A book, if I can say it, that came out, Presbyterian and Reformed Publishers published that last year. Came out in the middle of a year or in the early part of a year that has been, as all of us would know, filled with conflict politically and racially and in so many ways. We need to remember what it means to be made in the image of God and how that should affect how we should respect each other, how we should love each other as a result of that. That book really gets to the heart of what it means to be human, but then in practice, what does that look like in how we communicate with each other? And then the fourth book is the one we've been talking about.
Excellent. No, those are good. And I just wanted our audience to know about those as well. I've got one more thing to wrap. Well, before I wrap up, I do want to ask you too, because I was reading on your website, you're working on a Psalter. Is that true, or am I going
Yes.
down a bad path? Which I find fascinating. Would you want to share just a little bit about what that looks like and what's motivating you to do that? Because I think it's fascinating and wonderful.
That actually began in its early stages about 32 years ago, when I did contract a headache, and I was sick for quite a while. And there was a stretch where I wasn't able to do much. I was really pretty incapacitated. But for some reason, I was able to start reading the Psalms differently and realizing how valuable they were for all of us in all of our lives. Only the problem was that I was not aware of any collection of singable psalms. And so what I did was I started taking the Psalms, and as close as was possible, I couldn't do it word for word, and I couldn't do it exact, but as close as what was possible, I fit the Psalms to familiar hymn tunes. So that as I was pastoring a church at that time in New Jersey, we actually sang through the entire collection of Psalms twice. I put all of them to music, to, again, familiar tunes. And again, not, this was not fine, exquisite poetry. This was not, I don't know what you would call it in terms of the art quality, but it really did. Just what, a year ago, I had a woman who was part of our church way back then contact me and thank me for leading the church through the Psalms, because it taught her how valuable they are to us in our lives. And so within the last several months, I decided to pick up that project again. And I think on our website, we're up through like Psalm 25 or 26, just doing them as I am able. On the website, there's actually a musical score that a friend of mine has helped me put together so people can actually sing it to various tunes. Again, if people are looking for exquisite poetry, that's probably not the place to look. But if they're looking for a way to sing the Psalms, there's at least 25 of them there that are available. I do have many of them done, but I want to make sure that we get the proper musical arrangement and scores to go with them before I put them up on the website. But there are some there that people can hopefully enjoy.
Oh, that's wonderful. I think being able to sing God's word, speak God's word, pray through God's word, that is one of the most powerful things we can do. So I definitely wanted to make sure people knew about that as well. And just as we wrap up, if people want to know more about your books, about your Psalter, about you, where would you like them to go?
Well, I do have a website, simply timothyshorey.com will get you to the website. And there people can kind of scroll through and do whatever they want to do. There's sections about me. And then there is a Psalter section. There is, I do have a blog that I do fairly frequently. Also one there for youth. That is sporadic. It's not constant. There's also information about the books. There's also, I have had, especially growing out of the last book on Respect the Image, having growing opportunities to speak and do seminars on that material. So there's even an event page there if people are at all interested in that. So there's on that site alone, people can find out a lot about the books and other things. I do have a Facebook page as well that people can jump onto. So blogging, website, Facebook should at least get people connected.
Excellent. Well, we'll make sure all of those links are in the show notes. Everybody listening, check out the show notes to access all of Tim's books, material, and you will be encouraged when you check it out. So, Tim, thank you so much for joining me today. This was just an encouraging conversation for me. I know it will be for our listeners. I really just appreciate you taking the time to do it.
Well, thank you, Eric, and I appreciate you inviting me on. And I think it's mutually encouraging just to think on who God is and how He is blessing us in the coming generations. Good things to ponder. So,
indeed.
Thank you.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Wow, great conversation with Tim Shorey. 3 things that really jumped out. First, it's important to teach our children about a big God and give them the gospel so that they see the grandeur and the glory and the majesty of God along with the grace that comes through Jesus Christ. Super important. Second, children need more than moralism, more than ritual, more than ordinariness of religious faith. They need to see God's glory, and not only see God's glory, but then see us as parents demonstrating that throughout the week. Because when they do, when they see parents praying, when they see parents seeking God, when they see parents reading God's Word, when they see parents serving in the local church, it increases the likelihood that those children will be long-term believers. And in fact, if those children walk away from the faith, it increases the likelihood that they will come back. Last, every example our children can see of authentic faith is going to be one more means of God to create just the saving grace in the lives of our children. It is that layer upon layer upon layer of faith that will, it has long-term benefits, long-term repercussions. It's the fruit that will come from our actions. So, great conversation with Tim. Check out the show notes. Check all of his books as well. I know we talked a lot about ABC, Prayer to Jesus. I think that book was amazing, so I would definitely encourage you to check it out as well as the other materials. If you found this episode helpful, please leave a review for us wherever you listen to podcasts. Doing so will help others to find us. Check out the show notes for resource information. We encourage you to do that for links and other references. We'd like to hear from you, so you can message us your questions or comments on Facebook, Instagram, at Entrusting the Faith. You can email us at info@entrustingthefaith.com. If you go to our website, which is www.entrustingthefaith.com, you can sign up to our email list and receive free resources as well as upcoming podcast episode information. So check it out. Lastly, just remember, legacies are built a day at a time. So start now.